Welcome to Pre-Primary Sources. In our first two-part episode, I'm Liz Nolasco, and I'm back with Tiffany Pearsall.
Hello. Excited to be back.
And we are talking again about coloring pages because after we left
Are.
off, we kept going back and forth about, oh, why didn't we talk about this? And
Mhm.
but we forgot this. So we're kind of kicking
Right?
off today with coloring pages in mental health, right? Because Tiffany was talking about how in her program, a lot of the time the coloring pages are really, the kids find them soothing, they find them regulating, and they're really beneficial to the emotional climate of the classroom. And so
Mhm.
then a couple of nights ago, time is an illusion, Tiffany sent me a link and was like, hey, you were looking in the wrong place for research on coloring because look, there's all this stuff in the art therapy world. So I'm going to let you
Yeah,
summarize kind of what you saw about art therapy and coloring if you want to start there.
absolutely. And I'll start with a journey in that after our last conversation, the algorithm heard what we talked about and then fed me like 8,000 coloring ASMR memes and videos on Instagram. So then I was just like, this is so soothing. Let me send them all to Liz.
I thought that was either just like your normal feed or you got really into coloring or
No, it was, yeah, no, it was not. It was like because of our conversation, I started noticing, and then I started saving some of them. I was like, I'd like to try these ones out, and that is where I found a lot of the sites that were featured are art therapy sites,
mm-hmm.
and like that whole avenue of the coloring as like an anti-stress and coloring as like a structured brain break and coloring as not necessarily to say like a way to fight depression, but like it activates a different part of your brain than you use in everyday life and like only focus you on this one thing for a while that like lets your brain and your body release different things. Um, so then I started looking through Google Scholar, my favorite first step uh, for art therapy and coloring studies. Um, I really like the ones that were comparative of we gave this group coloring pages and then we gave this group supported art studio time. Um, in both of those treatments, from the very limited research that I did, both groups reported lower levels of stress and anxiety after doing any sort of art intervention. Also, it was always college kids, right? Like
Right. That's the
they're not researching in classrooms of children. They're researching in like people who have a nostalgia for classrooms of children. And I don't know, it just showed me that really any art that you're doing is good for your soul, is what I got out of that. Liz, talk to me about your hesitation to apply it to an early childhood classroom because I love where that thought was going.
yeah. So I guess I'm of two minds, right? Because on one hand, anything we can do for children's well-being is good. And I feel like a
Mm-hmm.
lot in education is either preventive um or what we should be doing, right? Is preventive or at least mindful of not causing harm, right? As a basic ethical principle, we should not be causing harm to children.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two sides to that, which is the
Mm-hmm.
first of which is we shouldn't be doing things that cause children mental distress in the first place. And I do want to really clarify the difference between
Mm-hmm.
mental distress and positive eustress and growth, the zone where learning and growth and development and excitement and wonderful things happen, and
Mm-hmm.
remaining within our scope of practice, which is where I feel like there's some creep. And I don't want to say that's only in early childhood because I think it's everybody. But my professional
Mm-hmm.
experience lies in early childhood. And I think that we get real confident in our
Yeah.
abilities and maybe draw from some sources that we don't have the expertise to interpret. So I'm
Yeah.
concerned about folks who are attempting treatments that they're not trained for, even when they're not calling them treatment,
Yeah.
or are maybe
Absolutely.
not seeking out other professional resources, which again dips into the is early childhood a profession? What do we draw from? What are our bodies of knowledge and research? So I guess
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I think, again, that baseline of we should be obviously keeping children's well-being in mind and wellness and all of that good stuff. And these are clearly things that are good for children, right? It's good to have those experiences of creativity and those experiences of learning how it feels to regulate your body and learning specific strategies for regulating your body. And I
Hmm.
feel weird taking art therapy research and running with it in an early childhood platform because I do think that when we start talking about depressive symptoms,
Yeah,
we are outside of our scope of practice.
yeah, absolutely. And how much is it our duty to make sure that those kids are getting the real help that they need?
Right.
Oh, this goes a far deep down for me that like, are there resources for children to get mental health help? Not where I live.
Right. And that's the thing. The bar is it needs to be catastrophically bad in most situations for a young child to be able to get help. And
Yeah,
even then,
exactly.
sometimes it's a
Exactly.
really long wait
Exactly.
between that catastrophic situation and um, treatment.
Any sort of insurance. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so I feel, yes, 100% agree with you. And if we can teach kids regulating skills and
Mhm.
show them lifelong creativity sources, and I do the same for nature experiences, right? Like nature is
Yes.
a nature experience in wild spaces is key to what we do. There's a huge body of knowledge that says that time out in nature is a great mitigating form of therapy. I'm not a nature therapist, but I do want our kids to feel that feeling and be able to connect to it if they do need more help and to say, this is something I can do that helps me feel regulated. I will seek out more of that later on the line.
That's such a good parallel to because yeah, similarly, it's all of the, you don't need antidepressants, you need time with trees. And it's like sometimes you need both. But right. um, but yeah, it's a regulating experience. It's something that's positive. There's mountains and mountains of evidence that being outside is positive for mental health. And
Hmm.
if right, if we're building that into children's early experiences as something positive for them, I don't see that
Hmm.
downside. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I wonder
I
though,
do
where is it?
see I do see this other big piece that we didn't talk on last time, which is the art studio, right?
Yes.
Like if the only art experience they're getting is this coloring page, then that's really sad, right? To
Right.
me, like the coloring page is not better than nothing, right? Like the reason that we have this love of coloring in our classroom is because we also have this love of painting and this love of drawing and this love of gluing and creating and cutting and collage. And it's like part of our art diet, right? And I
Mhm.
think that making sure that that art studio piece is connected to your practice in the classroom is equally important.
Yes. And I,
Does that
I
make
think that
sense?
ties into some of the social constructivist ideas we talked about last time too, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
think there are so many different ways to have an art
Hmm.
studio, right? Do you have an atelierista? Do you have someone, are your teachers trained in supporting children's use of tools? How are they encouraging and supporting and developing the children's skills? And how much freedom do the children have? Are they all going to the art studio to have experience with these wonderful materials, to be told to make the same thing, use their brush the same way? Or are there foundational skills that can be paired with children's free exploration? Are there teachers who are prepared to offer children, assistance with handling a brush or, using a lighter touch to make finer lines as they're able to, depending on their motor development? Are we thinking
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
art in a very concrete representational way, or are we allowing children to experience? Is it both? Is it all of it? And are we showcasing all children's art the same, or are we taking those very representative pieces and putting them front and center and putting the more experiential pieces to the sides for families to see or not?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yes. You couldn't see me
So
nodding along, but I'm,
I
yeah.
just threw out a
Yeah.
lot of stream of consciousness thinking I'll talk until I see your mouth move again. Uh, but I do think that there's a lot to be said for coloring pages and side by side with specific art education activities. And this is where I wish I had a former colleague of mine on who was an artist and was a wonderful children's art teacher and would have a lot more knowledgeable things to say about this than I do. But anything I say that sounds smart, I would like to credit Judy House for.
Good name. I like her name.
Yeah. But I think there's a, with anything, right? There's that zone of proximal development. There's the idea that culturally we're all learning from each other. And if we're
Yeah,
going to call ourselves educators, there is a role to accept a child's invitation to build on their skills or notice and
absolutely.
talk through, like, huh, it might be easier, if you use this smaller brush, or you might get what you're going for with, if you mix in a little bit of black with that red and blue that you've got going on there, right? Just talking through
Hmm.
what you're noticing that they want and taking those. I feel like the phrase teachable moments has become a little passe and overused, but I think they still exist.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. That moment where they're primed and ready for someone who has more skills than they at that given point in time to like coach them through an experience that they're seeking out anyway. And that's not to say there isn't also equal room for free experimentation, because I think
Yes.
that's honestly what we do more than anything in our classroom art area is have just so many interesting materials that then they dictate what to do with. Um, yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
was trying so hard to find before we recorded. I swear, sometime in the last 3 weeks, I read a Dewey quote about that was roughly about not making learners reinvent the wheel. And that was not exactly what he said, but it was
Yeah.
something along those lines. And
Oh, I
it's
want to see it because you know I'm number one John Dewey fan.
yes, I need to find it. I'm gonna text you at like 1 o'clock this morning, tomorrow morning, but I'll find it.
Excellent.
But it was interesting for me to see as right as someone who does lean towards let children discover it for themselves to go, oh right, like of
Hmm.
course there's a place for this involvement, and there's lots and lots of
Hmm.
places to let them. And I guess in light of, so Janisha Jones and I spoke the episode between us talking about the
Ooh,
new
I
vision
love
for an early
her.
childhood curriculum. She's the best. Uh, this is an
Hmm.
episode where I
She
just
is.
do shout outs to people I admire. Uh,
Excellent.
but we were talking about a new vision for early childhood curriculum, right? And the idea of planned curriculum, right? And how, what is best for children? What do we want to see? What should educators be imparting to children? And what is this timeline, right? Are the things that we say children need to know on kindergarten entry time sensitive, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I feel such a pull, right? There's that earlier isn't better. And
Hmm.
also, if they're ready, we should let them. So I don't know where you land if you've got
Yeah.
a
No,
great
I'm
balanced
definitely
line
on the
here.
that I don't have a fancy line, but that earlier isn't better is very key to me. And also if they're interested, why would you hold someone back?
Right.
Right? Like if they're ready, they're ready. Uh and thinking I'm still stuck back on this John Dewey quote that like how many times in your life have you seen someone do something on a baking show or some sort of TV show that you're like, I would also like to experience that. I would have never thought to do it that way.
Yes.
And um, just that, like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We There's so much art that has happened that you can build on, and you learning that craft means trying things and saying, "Oh, I would like to try to do that too." But there's also that piece of deep, like independent connection with the materials and trying new things on your own. But that doesn't mean that you exist in a vacuum. art never happens in a vacuum. And I feel like we get, like, as early childhood educators, we get shuffled into this process over product discussion that suddenly devalues that ability to see somebody try something and say, gosh, brilliant. I would like to try that.
Yes. How do you feel about the kind of studio approach where children are studying the techniques of a particular artist? Because I feel like that's aligned, and I think it's one that can go either way, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I have strong feelings about teaching children to do any art technique, right? Like I'll show them by modeling something.
Mhm.
I'll notice what I do more than that is I say, hey, you guys, Poppy over here has figured out that if you use the crayon on the paper on the hot rocks, it melts the crayons. Have you guys seen this? And so that to me is what, like, as an art teacher, I do that more than anything else because we do
Mhm.
art all day. Like, I don't know if I call myself an art teacher, but our classroom is 50-50 art studio and playland.
Mhm.
It takes up 50% of our classroom, and our classroom is big. So, like, putting it in context, we have about 600 square feet of art studio available every
Wow.
day. Classrooms are big. Uh, and so I rarely teach direct techniques. What I'd
Mhm.
much rather do is have like set something out that invites the children to think about things in a different way. Um, I actually took a whole bunch of videos for you yesterday at school. We've been using our heart hole punchers to make a whole bunch of different colors and shapes hearts for Valentine's Day. Our crew loves to decorate. We tape everything to the walls. They just discovered I will hang anything from the ceiling anywhere they want. So we've upgraded that too to like styrofoam covered in toothpicks hanging over there. That's our Pokey Octopus. That's exactly where we put it. Uh, but my invitation for that moment was we also have these 5x7 index cards that I am, as an artist, obsessed with right now. So I just folded them in half and put them in a basket on the table. And everybody made hearts for their moms and dads. Like that was what we did all morning. And like literal hour and a half. Two girls were there the entire time singing to each other and showing each other what they did and cutting the hearts in half and gluing little shreds of whatever to this paper. But it was like it had never occurred to them that they could make this tiny, that they could use the scale, that they could have little art completed, and then they could make 1,000 of them. Like that discovery and exploration without me having to say anything about it is like key early childhood art experience to me.
Yes.
And so when like circling back to the original point here, I love doing artist highlights that are hey, we're gonna look at all the art from what is her name? Grandma Moses.
Oh, yeah.
She like yeah, hers is really fun to do in the wintertime because of her style and like the way and the detail and the scale of it all. And when I've done those experiences in the past with kids, it's that we have a bunch of this art up because did you know she was like 96 when she made this painting? And like there must have been turkeys living where she lived too. And we saw the turkeys yesterday. And oh, like we were pretending to do horse rides on the sleds yesterday, and here's a painting of one. And so having it be this conversation about the pieces and not about the technique or about the result is, I think, much more true to what experiencing art should be. And then
Mhm.
for the children, the ability to see that and say, I would like to try that. I'm inspired by that. Like, what can we have that's similar? So then listening to them and seeing, like, oh, she used a lot of oil pastels. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just off the cuff at this point. But like, how can we have several different types of oil pastels available to say, oh, like this looks like the exact same brown from that painting we have hung up over there. Like, I wonder how she got it different shades. And like having those conversations is so much more important to me than teaching them how to do the art. That was a
I
lot.
love that. So
Sorry.
your comment on the exact brown kind of springboarded me because when I was in the classroom, I was pretty I always had my easel open, always had paints available, always had paper. It was always there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I was pretty insistent for a while that we had some blank, like empty palettes and empty jars, but I would just stock the primaries and shades, like primaries black and white, because I wanted the children to have the experience of
Mm-hmm.
mixing the colors and seeing that. And then they could take the palettes and the jars and whatever else to mix their own blends. But that
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm-hmm.
got me thinking of, well, now we're back to, does everybody have to reinvent the wheel every time? And I think there's a lot of value
Yeah.
in them mixing their own colors and also could have been less uptight. Uh, like, to be fair, I don't know that the children ever ask for anything other than green because it's a pain to get the right shade of green with blue and yellow and white, especially when you're trying to figure out that you need so much less blue than yellow. But
Yep. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, you haven't been introduced to the sourdough method, the sourdough starter method of paint and Play-Doh, which we have invented in our classrooms.
is that letting them mix all the
uh,
Play-Doh? Because that was my technique as well. But
yeah, no, it's
oh,
not just letting them mix everything all the time. It's that you continuously add to what you have in a
mm,
way that will inspire. So our Play-Doh starts to get crumbly. We're going to make an extra goopy batch in a
ah.
color that'll mix well with that. So then when they mix them both together and they can cheese grate the hard crumbly into it, like that is a new experience.
Hi, hello, that is
And
brilliant.
then the same with paint.
Wait, cheese grating the dried out
this,
Play-Doh
this,
into super squishy Play-Doh? I love this.
oh yeah, that's real fun. First of many. We got lots where we come from. Uh, our latest favorite is that I found these horse braiding assister combs that look like mini Wolverine fangs. And so you can like shred them like they're meat claws, and you can just like shred up that Play-Doh. And now it's like cheese for your pizza of Play-Doh. And then, okay, so I'm definitely going off the rails here. But for paint, we have these like big, I think they're 6-ounce ramekins with sealable lids, and they're
Mhm.
wide enough that you can put a paintbrush in it and it's not going to tip over ever. So there's
Hmm.
like a wide enough base that that brush stays in, because that is the most annoying thing to me, is when you put a brush in and the cup tips over and spills all the water out. Like, bro, just let me paint. So we found these ramekins that we can seal every day. And what will happen is that, we put fresh paint in when they're freshly cleaned, and then the colors get all mixed up, and then the kids ask for more colors as they run out, and then we just put them into whatever is left. And what happens is like in art education, they talk about painting with a mother color, where you add a little bit, you get your colors that you're ready to paint with in your big fancy painting, and then you add a little bit of the mother color to everything, and suddenly all of the tones come together visually. And so the kids are just doing this. Like I don't have to explain it to them. I don't have to talk to them about making organic colors. What they're doing is creating new colors, and they're saying, you know what? I'd really like some more blue here. We're out of blue. Can you put the blue in this one? Yeah, sure. Yes. And so now the blue is mixed in with everything else, and it shockingly doesn't turn to preschool gray. They run out of paint. They are so excited about painting that they get to the bottom of the paint and ask for more color before we get to preschool gray, which I do
Oh,
love preschool gray. But it's like this organic thing. And so then there are always different colors. It's not that we always have all the colors, it's that there are always wholly different and unique and never the same colors to paint with. And what happens is that a child who loves orange sees all the orange that has been made over days and days and days and is like, today is the day I'm ready to paint. Today it's my turn. Does that make
hmm.
sense?
I think so. I'm trying to envision how many jars of paint do you have going at once? That's the only thing where I'm like trying to.
Uh, Usually we have 6, sometimes 8.
Okay. So it's a similar primary, secondary, black and white mirror.
I mean, it's whatever.
Okay,
Dude,
yeah.
on Thursday it was red and green and orange. And inside I'm cringing. I'm like, this is going to be such a gross, muddy brown, you guys. But like, why do I care? That's the colors they wanted to mix in with everything. And guess what?
Right.
They painted some weird brown outer space, like the stories they were making about this color that they would have never thought to mix on their own that just happened was awesome. They were pulling out old paintings and rubbing this color over everything. And I was just like, that's my favorite shade of muddy brown. But they were like, I've never seen this brown before. I need to put it on things.
Hmm. That's so interesting. I've always been interested. So culturally, color perception differs, right? Like the line between blue and green ch changes
Mm,
based on your cultural background. And
hmm
I think there are others, but that's the one that I can recall immediately. And
hmm
it is interesting to me how young children are observing all of the gradients in between, what we think of as discrete colors, but still
hmm
just that level of experimentation with them, I guess, is super interesting. And I love that the way your sourdough starter paint happens.
It happens like it happens with basically everything in our classroom at one point or another, that it's just like we're adding to the continuous pot. It's not that we're
Mhm.
creating unique experiences, that we're like adding something else to the pot that we saw at the thrift store and reminded us of this as teachers. But back to our coloring page conversation, because this is
Yes.
where I think the context of how I got here. So when we talk about just strictly mixing colors, because we've gone off on the color train here for a minute,
Mhm.
the way that I talk to them about color is more like, ooh, that's an interesting color you made. What does that remind you of? What does it make you want to paint? It kind of makes me want to paint a hippopotamus. Like, weird. I've never thought about painting a hippopotamus. And that is like the inverse of coloring pages to me. So when I see it, and this is just for me personally, I don't think the students do this at all, but the conversation that happens in my head when I see a coloring page is, I'd like to try to make this flower as close to this purple I've seen in real life before. These are the tools ahead of me. How am I going to mix the colors to get there? And that is what makes coloring fun for me. And yes,
Do
there's
you,
a soothing, repetitive use, and I love finding new pens and using new mediums. And that's the first thing I want to do when I buy a new pack of pens or pencils or, oh, we just found these skinny tempera sticks. You know, the fat, they look like glue sticks, tempera
yeah.
paint sticks. They
Hmm.
make them skinny now.
Oh,
And so, first thing I wanted to do was get me some coloring pages. I want to mix these colors, see how they mix. I want to see how thick they lay on the page. Do they go through it? Do they not? Because I'm trying to figure out what it is. I'm not ready to figure out how to use it to the best of my intention. I just want to explore the what before I
hmm.
explore the how. And so then the conversation that happens in our classroom is I'm saying out loud, like, oh, my favorite thing to do is to mix colors. Try to make this purple. And then the kids will just start handing me, like, try this one. And then we try it. It's like, well, it seems like it needs to be a little richer. Maybe I'll add this on top. And so it's not about I'm coloring Elsa to look like Elsa. It's about, oh, these color pencils are all in flat today, and I need a pink. Let's let's sharpen 8,000 pencils together and find the best one. Like, it's so much more than just I'm sitting here quietly, methodically coloring Elsa.
Right. Do you see that? So you said that that's you and not the kids. So I'm curious to bring it back to what the children are doing with the coloring pages. Do you see more
Mm-hmm.
replication or do you see more experimentation or is it really kid dependent, day dependent, moment dependent?
It's, I see a lot of experimentation, but not in the color mixing way. That one is actually quite rare to see them do on a coloring page. I'll see them narrate a story with it. And just
Mm-hmm.
the same way that they would tell a story as they paint, they're telling a story on top of the coloring page. Um, I do see the color mixing a lot more with watercolors.
Yeah.
I think that it kind of hurts their brains a little bit to think like these are the colored pencils in front of me. I could mix colors with them. Because I also think a
Mhm.
lot of adults haven't been introduced to that idea.
Right.
That like when you color them light on top of each other, they make new colors. And same with high quality beeswax crayons. they create they make new colors. Um, and I see them with that repetitive, like meditation style coloring. They'll get the whole thing colored, sometimes all one color. And then the older kid, it's only when it gets to like 4.5, 5 that they even care what picture the lines make. It's more like, how am I interacting with these squiggles? And then
Yeah.
suddenly they're like, oh, but this makes a kitty paw. And I would like to make purple kitty paws because she has been eating grapes. Like, yeah, they do. My favorite thing to watch is them using watercolors on coloring pages because I feel like they are free with their watercolors, but they're less likely to complete a piece with watercolors for me, if that makes sense. What they'd
Interesting.
rather do is mix and test and find what each one does. It's the
Mhm.
what. They want to know what this is. They haven't really been called to do a whole piece until later in the afternoon.
Okay. And I guess I don't know that we've made it explicit. I in my mind have been talking about like preschool, like 2.5 to 5-ish-year-olds, and I think you mostly have two.
Hmm. Yeah.
But when are coloring pages introduced in your program? Like how old? You do segregate the age. I
Um,
don't know what your actual age groups are though.
Preschool is 3 to 5 for us. So they're
Mhm.
available at any time starting at 3.
Okay.
But
Do
not,
you,
like I said, not every day. Just like one of the paper slots. They're also
right,
introduced to, uh, this is the context that I think is important for coloring pages. They're introduced to coloring pages and line paper and graph paper and index cards and cardstock and construction paper and tracing paper and tissue paper and big cardstock and copy paper at the same time.
right,
So it's like it's another type of paper.
right. Yeah, it's not just the crappy construction paper that bleaches in the sun when it's been out on the window for 2 days versus coloring
Hmm.
pages where
Hmm.
the lines stay and it looks better. It's
Hmm.
having
Hmm.
that full ecosystem of stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's where like it's a part of the diet, not
Mhm.
the only choice. And that's why coming back to those art therapy college kid studies that I was reading,
Right,
the art studio, like both of them had significant results. The art studio had greater significant results. So that tells me
hmm,
that like coloring pages aren't bad, but the art studio is better. And if you have
right,
access to both, then like you have more free will. And do you have access to an art studio at home? Probably not, but you do have access to coloring pages.
right. Ooh, I'm so curious how that would be. I mean, college students are such a specific population of people.
Yeah.
I am curious how
Yes, right?
generalizable that is.
Yes. Who's gonna do our early childhood research on this for us?
Let me know when there are grants available again. Wake me up in 2040 and I'll get right on it. That would be interesting. Oh man, well, thank you so much for revisiting this with me. I really appreciate your time again. And I'm gonna have to post this on the socials with all of the links to like ASMR coloring and drawing because I got super into the ASMR color mixing for a very long time. It's all the little
It's
palette
so
knife clicks.
satisfying.
Yeah, so
Uh-huh,
nice.
uh-huh. Yeah. And I feel like kids get to experience that in their real life, you know?
Right.
Like that's okay. We can just kind of have this chill vibe, man. It doesn't have to be, you know, a whole process experience or art is the purest form of creation. Like sometimes you just want a chill vibe, and that's okay.
Okay, wait, one last question before I let you go. How is that
Okay, yeah.
communicated between educators and with families? like in terms of display, in terms of what families are saying when they see what the children have made or drawn, or what they have been working on, or a lack of what they've been, if they're just not interested in some of the art materials, or how does that play out?
Yeah. I feel like it's like a super non-issue. Mm, the parents know their kids pretty well. So if there's somebody who doesn't like art at all, then I'm talking to their parents about that. And usually those parents are like, or those family members are like, yeah, they hate it. That's just who they are. And at the same time, then it's like my personal job to find an avenue in. So is
Mhm.
that taping pens to the trains? Like, how do we make mark making something in our classroom that is inherently necessary to that child without it feeling forceful? That makes sense? Because
Yes.
usually that's where it stems from. Like, I want this to have meaning in my life. Uh,
Right.
Also the white, like, I don't know if I'm going to have a good answer for this because we send 100% preschool gray if it happens, kid art home every day, and the kids give it value, and it's not coloring pages every day, you know?
Right. Hmm.
Yeah.
And then you said
So,
that the children determine what's displayed in the classroom anyway. So it's not that
yeah,
you or your teachers are choosing specific items to showcase.
yeah, yeah, for sure. If kids give us art, we have a bulletin board we staple it up on.
Mhm.
Um, and that's just, you give me anything and I'll put it up there. Wear your necklace for the rest of my life if you want me to. Yeah. Uh, there's just no expectation from families that they're going to get anything. That's the wrong way to say it. There's not an expectation that the art is performative or indicative of a child's ability in our rooms. We talk a lot
Yeah.
about how all the art that we do is true kid art. It's driven by them and their experiences. Um, yeah, we do a
Awesome.
lot of
Thank you.
dictation too. So when the kids are when we're putting names on, if they don't know how to write their own name, then it's, do you want to say anything else? And there's usually a story that goes with everything. And yeah,
Ooh,
did that answer it? I think it did.
that did. Thank you. Yes. And I could have just remembered that you said it at the very beginning that the kids choose where things go and that you will put them anywhere. But
Yeah, we're not displaying group projects. We're not, I mean, what we do display group projects. That's not true. The things that I display are like we went on a big 3D hot glue kit, and this is the giant cardboard box of projects that kids didn't want to keep. And now I'm going to glue it all together and spray paint it one color and hang it on the wall.
so that was
Right?
your
So, like,
addition to what they'd already made.
yeah,
The spray paint was your, huh, okay.
yeah. And it was things that they didn't even want. And I think that that's another, gosh, I could talk about this forever. Um, Another piece is that we save everything. And we talk a
Mhm.
lot about, oh, that didn't go how you wanted. Like, that's just your practice one. Do as many practices as you want before it's how you like it. And
Mhm.
then I'll ask sometimes too, like, oh, do you want to keep this? Can I color it in? And so then I'll just like do art with them, and this piece that they're frustrated with suddenly has like their favorite color all over it. And they've drawn one that they like better anyway. And so then it's this point of connection. Um, but any paintings that don't have names, we cut up for collage. And sometimes we hang them up. We don't know the kids don't even remember who made it, but like, this one's cool. It looks like an alligator. What story do you want to tell about it? Like, it's never performative, and it's always this like all art has value, even if you quote unquote didn't like it. It still is an experience that you had that can be translated to a new experience.
It's so interesting. And I love the perpetual stew of art that is all over your classroom. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
I'll take some pictures of our scrap paper bin in particular because those paintings that they're flyby. I don't want to wash my hands after snack, and suddenly I've just like painted half a painting, and I don't really want to. I'm just avoiding another task. Those make the best papers for hole punching later. So then you have all this like really lovely, interesting color. That's like the color itself is like, I remember the point in time because of that color being sourdough made at the easels at this point in time. And now we're using it to hole punch hearts for Valentine's Day. Like
Mhm.
it's it's just perpetual, man. Art forever.
That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that and for jumping right on when I was like, coloring pages, fuck them, am I right?
And I was like, they are a tool in the toolbox, my friend. And we haven't
Uh,
even talked about the kids that have never had art experiences in their life that are scared to make any mess, that love Paw Patrol. And so the one time you get them to hold a paintbrush is because Paw Patrol is part of it. So like you gotta just know your kids, know your audience.
yes, what is it? It was Robin
Yeah.
Einzig, I think, is the one who talks about the frog ramp,
Hmm.
right? Like they're stuck in the pool and then you offer the little frog ramp and they jump out, and that frog ramp can be
Yeah.
like that moment of connection or the joke or the Paw Patrol
Hmm.
coloring painting page. Yes,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
easy
Exactly.
entry point.
Hmm. And what an easy way to, as a teacher, make a child feel seen. I know
Mhm.
you love trains. Look at all these trains I found. Will you tell me which one you like best? It's so simple and so lovely.
Right. It just that idea that your
Check
interests
that
are
it's
valuable
fair.
to
So,
them. Mhm.
yes, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Man, I love that. On that very happy note, I'm going to let you go
Liz.
before your child wakes up.
Thank you.
But I also do have a pin
Guess what we're
in
gonna do
like,
later? We're gonna color.
I want to color now. Uh,
Yeah, that's pretty great.
all right. Thank you
All
all for
right. Well, thanks for
listening.
having me on the show.
And I will talk to you soon. Yes.
Bye.
Bye.